Hello, my friends. I hope you're doing well today. I was doodling around the other evening, as I do sometimes in the evenings, and it occurred to me that the way that I draw these bottles, and actually quite a few other things, doesn't require any real artistic skill. And so I thought I would make a video to show how to do this so that, anybody might enjoy, but especially for those of you who want to create some more personal artwork in your junk journals, visual journals, just in general. So you might give it a try. So let me show you how I do this. Super simple, and I'll show you a few other things. Because, while this is nice in my sketchbook, I really enjoy the look of artwork on book pages. When I picked this book page, I picked this where it says a grim story at the top just because it was one that I knew I wasn't going to want to use in anything else, but now I kind of want to use it in something else because having a grim story in a bottle that could be a bottle of poison just seems like, okay, there's something sort of weird and dark I could do there. Anyway, it's out of a Nancy Drew book, actually. You gotta have, even in Nancy Drew, you gotta have some darkness, I guess, in order to get through to the light. Here's one, a helpful fisherman. Yeah, that's because he's been drinking whatever's in that bottle. Okay, sorry, sidetracked. But I do like the look of artwork over book page. So we'll do that today. Started. I have put things out of my reach that I need. No, I haven't, because I'll use this. Okay, I'm going to use just some scrapbook paper for this. You do not have to use scrapbook paper for this part of the project, but this way there will be some contrast. So, because I have a bigger page, maybe I want a little bigger bottle. Maybe not. Anyway, you want to cut a chunk of paper. I like to use scrapbook paper or cardstock, rather, something a little bit heavier weight, because you're going to draw around this piece. And I've got some patterns that I made the other day that I made with sketchbook paper, and they work okay, but it's less frustrating if you can do these on thicker paper. If not, plain old copier paper will be just fine. So I fold it in half, and I just want a general bottle shape. Now, if you feel like you have to draw that, by all means, you can start with a straight edge, none of which is right in reach, but okay, there. You can start with a pencil, you can start with a straight edge. Your bottles are going to have a slightly rounded bottom. So I'm going to slightly round a bottom, and I'm just going from the center. I folded that in half because that's the center of that bottle. So slightly round the bottom. And then if you need a very straight-sided bottle and it scares you, sure, you can draw it in. But I think especially if you're going for older bottle look, don't worry so much about that. Maybe if you did draw it in, okay, so round it out a little bit. And I don't typically even draw these in. I just go ahead and cut out. But I'll show it drawn because if you don't comfortably draw all the time, I can remember those days for myself. And it was much easier to have a bit of a pattern. So I've got my bottle, here's the shoulder, this is the shoulder of a bottle, comes up, here's the neck of a bottle. And then you want this little lip of your bottle, and then your bottle may have a stopper or not. You may not want a stopper if you want to plant flowers in it, like this one, if you're using it as a vase, you may not want to put a stopper in there. But notice, all different shapes. These are all pretty straight-sided. I'll show you some more in a moment. that have different shapes. So I'm going to imagine, I think I'll imagine kind of a teardrop stopper. Let's see how that goes. Now again, I usually just cut out and go with it. And if the first thing I cut out I don't love, I can always trim some more. Do you get where I'm going with this? We're just making patterns. Okay, let's fold it open and see what we've got. Well, that's pretty good, but it does seem to have kind of a tiny neck for a tall bottle. I think let's see what I'll do. I was going to shorten the bottle, but I think what I want to do is just lengthen the neck. So I'm going to cut the shoulder down a little bit lower. And this is very low stress. If in the end I don't love it, I can just take another piece of paper and cut out another one. Well, there, I like the proportions on that pretty well. It's a little hard, it looks a little bit different from side to side because of the marks, and maybe that won't show up so much on camera, but it's like, oh, that looks odd. It's because I didn't cut exactly on my pencil marks, because why cut on the lines you drew? I don't know. So there's that. So that's basically how to make a bottle pattern. And I have a bunch here that I made the other day. That's one that's in that drawing. Here's one that's kind of more like perfume bottle or something. Short and stout. Here's the one that I used for these. So all different ones. So then, super simple. I'm going to see about making a little bit of an arrangement, like maybe they're on a vanity or maybe they're on a kitchen shelf. It depends on what they're holding. Are they at an apothecary? You know, what is your personal, what's your style? Are you witchy? Are you kitchen-y? Are you vintagey? I think something like that. So, now you can do one of two things. You can draw around it with a pencil first and then go over it in marker, or you can just be bold and go marker first. I use a couple different things. I use microns like almost everybody does. 05 and 08 are two of my favorites. 05 is my standard go-to for everything. 08's a little bolder line, and I'll probably use that today. I also have these that I really like. I bought these specifically to use with Copic markers. It didn't seem to make any difference, or very little difference, on matte, dry book page. But if you have slightly glossy paper, which, like if you're a Copic marker artist, you would use, the paper has kind of a hard finish, if not full-on glossy. It's got a real hard finish, so things don't soak in as much. On that particular paper, Copics can smear your microns. It depends on whether the ink is water-based or alcohol-based, because Copics are alcohol, so they will dissolve your black lines sometimes. On old book page that's that matte finish, dry, not glossy, it didn't matter. So that's what these were, was I was testing. And the in minutes is right away, did it bleed or not? And the only time it kind of did was here, and that was micron with the Copic, doing it right away, even on old dry paper where the microns were soaked in. It did smudge the tiniest bit, but it's awfully hard to tell. So, use what you got. You can use just your regular ink pen and have quite lovely results. I know in junior high when we were learning to do pen and ink, that's all the junior high art teacher had us use was a black Bic pen. So you don't have to get too fancy with your art supplies to have a good time. So I'm going to trace around this. Now you can do this with a lot of other shapes, and perhaps I'll do other videos where I will show that. But think about things like teapots, teacups, flower vases, all sorts of things are symmetrical or their basic shape. Like on a teapot, the basic shape is symmetrical, and then you stick a handle on one side and a spout on the other. I can hear those of you who don't think of yourselves as artists going, but see, that would be exactly it. I can't draw that. Well, okay, maybe I'll do a video another day to show you that you can. Or in the meantime, until I get around to that, just go try it. You can too. Drawing is a skill that can be learned. It's harder for some people than others, depends on your brain wiring, your background, and a whole lot of other things. But if you're willing to let go of the other things and to work around any brain wiring issues that you may have, you can learn to draw. But for now, you don't have to learn very much because you just trace those out. And I do want to back up for just a second and just show you doing this without drawing at first, because I'm telling you don't have to draw, but I showed you how to draw that right at the beginning. Let's just do one. And I'm not using my little fancy scissors or anything, big old scissors. Basic scrapbook paper. Okay, there's that. There's the bottom. It's curved. Maybe that's a little too curved. Okay. Don't do quite that much. Okay. Coming up the side. Let's see. I want wavy sides. Okay. And I want a long neck. Okay. And it's going to have some sort of a lip. And this one's not going to have a stalker, and if I decide I want one, I can add it later. Okay, so I've cut this shape. If you get in the general direction of bottle, anything you cut out is going to make a bottle shape. Like, okay, you don't remember seeing any bottle like that? Well, you haven't been hanging out in enough antique stores, because that looks just like some of those old bottles that were meant for perfume and things like that. And if you don't like that, like maybe you don't like that middle bump, okay, you fold it back up and you make that middle bump a little smaller. Okay, now what have you got? Oh, you've got that. It's still a bottle shape. See, you can do this. You didn't have to draw anything there. And then you traced around it. Now, here's where you get into just the tiniest bit of drawing, because when you go through and you trace around this, and normally I would turn my paper, but I'm terrified to turn my paper because I'm afraid I'm going to go out of frame. I am still working really hard at getting the hang of staying in frame. This actually does go faster if you trace right around it to begin with your marker. But where you've got bottles overlapping, you might be glad that you didn't. Down here over the shoulder. Okay, I'm down to there. I'm going to come to this other bottle. This one's in front, so I probably would do well to get that darkened up right away. Could have done that first, didn't. I'm just focused on the outline right now. I'll get into drawing in the details in just a moment. So I'm just following that outline I traced. And if your lines aren't perfect, don't worry about it. Just make them a little darker. Okay, so I've done that. Now what I need to do, as you'll see on this, you see through some things. So the liquid inside, the end of the stopper, the alarm going off that doesn't need to be going off right now. Excuse me just a moment. Okay, so where was I? The stopper. On this picture, so far I haven't sketched in where these bottles behind are because I'm not sure what the contents of this is going to be. This I now know, and so I'm going to put this bottle in, but I'm going to put it in lightly because in my imagining you wouldn't see it as strongly as you would see it out here. Make sense? But over here, since I don't know, this may contain flower petals or herbs or something dried, in which case it would be opaque and you wouldn't see it. So the pencil line is in there, but I haven't done anything with that one yet. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. I don't want to darken in these lines yet until I know what I'm putting in my bottles. Okay, and so now I'm getting into things I have to draw in. I have to draw in the underside of my bottle stopper. So that was just a little swoop. Just something to know about any sort of vessel. For the most part, anything that sits on your table that you look at that's cylindrical and holds liquid or whatever, like your coffee cup, it's not like that. I mean, you can do that and people are going to get, okay, coffee cup, good enough doodle. But if you want your doodle a little more realistic, you got to curve the bottom a little bit. I'm exaggerating here. And you got to curve the top a little bit, and this, and then there's the coffee down in there. And then there's the handle. And you can put your handle straight on the side, so you don't have to worry about any complicated 3/4 view stuff. Good enough. Now it's a coffee cup. So, same thing with this. Wait a minute. The whole reason coffee cup came to mind. Milky coffee perfection. Okay, I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to darken. At the bottom of a bottle, the glass is thicker, so there's always that. And then, now I'm going to decide that this is going to have liquid in it. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the back of that. Just like this top of the coffee cup, the bottom of that glass bottle, if your liquid is somewhat clear at least, you're going to see at least a little bit of that behind. Up here, you're not going to see that because the stopper's in there. But you're probably going to see a little bit of the stopper sticking down in there. And I imagine that this is a glass stopper that just has that kind of cone shape. And I'm not going to get too serious about it because, again, it's behind another piece of glass, so I don't want it to have the strongest lines. So a little bit, I'm going to do a little, this is called cross-hatching, if you don't know that. And this is, am I doing this to the degree that I would in other types of drawing where I'm wanting to be, I don't know, more finished? No, this is doodle art. We're just doodling these. So, is this perfect shading? No, this is sufficient shading to get the idea across and make a satisfying little doodle bit to use in my journal. And I'm going to do a little on the bottom because I imagine that the glass rounds just a bit around the bottom. Okay, a little bit on the stopper. And this stopper has a round knobby top, so that means it has to get some shading underneath. So all of your shading is going to go to the same side on all of these. Let's see, this one, I'm going to imagine that this lip is out here and this stopper sits in here. It's not quite tight in there. And let's see, it comes down. And I'm just going to imagine it does that. Okay, what's going to be in this front one? Is it going to be a liquid or a solid? I think for the purpose of not having to deal with what would it look like if a liquid is showing with that behind and that might have something else, we'll keep it simple for today. I am going to assume that this one has solid stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and shade. The importance of that will kind of show up in a little bit here. I'm going to shade this. And this might be where you'd want to switch to a finer pen so that your little cross-hatchy stuff can be finer. I am just doodling along and I don't think I mind all that much. Now it's not going to have very much shading here. It is that side of the bottle, so less light. But this is an upper surface, so light's going to hit that surface. So you don't want to shade very heavily there. And I'm just kind of curving these crosshatch lines, just following the curve of the bottle, suggesting the curve of the bottle a little bit with those. Less so on these coming upwards. Don't know that that makes the least bit of difference, but I just noticed that that's what I do, so I'm mentioning it. I'm going to go in and darken those up just a little bit. Okay, and then this last one. And that is more of a cork, which is more of a cylinder, so again, you're going to see the top. And being cork, it has more of that corky texture, so I'm going to kind of do spotty dotty stuff, and it's going to have that quirky texture all over, but I'm going to do less on this side than I did on that side, and that way it will shade. Okay, and up top just a little bit, because of course the light is hitting it, so you don't need to shade the top. Just want to put the texture in. Lip comes around. So even if you're not doing this along with me right now, I hope that you will give it a try. And if you need to, just come back to this video, pop this up, and go along, work along with me. I have learned all kinds of things on YouTube by just bothering to actually go, okay, quit scrolling, quit just watching, go get your art supplies, set them up, make along. Even if I don't have exactly whatever that YouTube creator is working with, I just do something similar, just to stretch a little bit. It's good for you. Now here, I've got this, and I know that this is going to be opaque on this bottle, so I need to get my shading in here. I need to imagine how far out it's going to go, but I don't really want to overlap onto the bottle. So I'm going to stick this in, and I'm going to just kind of give myself a little line here, so that I can just kind of get my shading going And then I'll pull this out of the way. And that's just so I can easily relax and get that shading happening, because this is a chunky little bottle, so there's more around on that side than the other bottles. Okay. And then I can go in and tell where to put that. Would I always necessarily do that? No, but it's a great way to get it there if you've never done it before, or if you're just kind of frozen up. That's another thing. For those of you who are artists, if you find you're just kind of frozen up, give yourself some grace. Use, don't be too proud to use some tips and tricks to get in there and play with crafty kinds of things instead of fine art things. Whatever helps to get you loosened back up again. And then this one, I think, is holding liquid also, so I'm gonna put this across the back. Now, before I do any painting on this, any tinting, first I'm gonna erase that pencil line out of there. So I know I don't need that. There's one in there. Isn't showing, but might show up later, so I'm gonna erase that out. Okay, and here, the cork is in there, but this lip is so thick that you're just barely gonna notice the cork. So I'm just doing a tiny bit of scribble there, and that cork doesn't come down very far, so I'm not worried about putting any down here. Okay, labels. Does your bottle need a label? Are any of them labeled? I think mine probably are. And let me see if I've got them handy. I have label patterns in here. See, like I said, if it's symmetrical, you can make a pattern for it. And if you're not too hung up on I always draw things freehand, you can enjoy having those patterns make your life easier. Okay, are these a little bigger than I would want? Kind of bigger than I'd want for that, but I could put it on this bottle. And I'm going to do it as though that bottle is turned somewhat. I'll draw around it pencil first, just to make sure I like that placement. These labels were made just the very same way. I folded paper in half. I cut shapes I thought I might like, cut them out, looked at them, probably threw a quarter of them away until I got shapes I did like. Some of them I transferred onto Cracker Box. Honestly, I didn't do a very good job of transferring, so I'm not sure these patterns are any better. They're easier to draw around, but they're, not so perfect. So, anyway, that is how I did those. And I've got a few more in here that are a nice shape, but wrong size. So, yeah, I need to make some smaller ones. Okay, let's do labels. Next chunk of paper. And let's see. So I'll start off, I'll cut it to just a little bigger than I want the label to be. Okay, so I know it's going to be smaller than that. Now you can fold this just in half, or you can fold it in quarters. When you're working this small, if you're going to fold it in quarters, it might be easier to do this with copier paper rather than scrapbooking cardstock. Excuse me. This gets a little bulky. But, okay. Let's see what that does. Yeah, and And that's where, see, where with the cardstock folded, it doesn't come out as even. But you can go back and just fold it in half each direction and trim a bit. And end up with something that matches both directions. Check and see where you need to trim to get them even. There. Is it perfect? No, it's good enough. Okay, and this one, maybe this one's going this way. Nah, that's too skinny. Maybe this one goes on this bobble back there. Yeah, I think I'll put this one on this bottle back here. This front bottle, maybe I want more of a vertical. Ooh, I like that. So it's the same label as that, but vertical. Maybe I need a different label just so it doesn't look. I'm going to work myself into a corner because I'm going to make myself have to do some artwork on there. That's okay. I can show you a little doodle to put on there. It's super easy. Okay, so drawing around my label. There. All right, back in with my micron, which I should not have left sitting uncapped all that time, but luckily it's a fairly new one. Back to eraser. If you're working on slick paper, hold off a moment as far as erasing your pencil lines, because on slick paper your marker needs a moment to dry. Okay, so I'm going to say that this one's rose petals. And I'm just going to write in the word rose petals. If you do not love your own writing, you can use rubber stamps. You can skip doing labels. You can get over not liking your own writing. I know it can be hard. I used to be a sign painter, and so for a very long time, doing lettering like this that was less than perfect, I hated it. It was like, oh my gosh, that's horrid. Can't believe anybody would want to letter that way. Now I laugh at myself. I look back at that time and just think, oh my goodness. I was a lettering snob. I missed out on so much fun because I thought things really could only look good if they were perfect. And there is a place for that kind of perfection, of course. Commercial signs should look professionally lettered unless it suits the business to be kind of wonky. But, you know, it's got its place. But in artwork, no. Let it be loose. Okay, rose petals. Now I've got all of this stuff. Let me show you a quick little way to make a rose. And on the chance that it's going to be a little hard to see on top of that, I'll show you on white paper first. Make a little spiral. Now we're not going to just make spiral roses. That's a spiral for the center. Now what you want to do is go out and touch in. Go out and touch in. You're going to keep spiraling around, but you go out and make a bit of a petal shape, and the further out from the center, the more petal shaped your petals get. And then you touch in. Ruffle the edge, touch in. And here, I think I'm just about big enough, but I want one more petal over here, so I'll break away from the just spiraling around and add a petal. And then I'll go back here and add a little one. There you go. You can doodle a rose. You need a leaf, put a line out, that's the center. Rose leaves, as far as I know, all have jagged edges. So you just do that. Just jag, 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 jag. There you go. You got a leaf. A couple of little ones. You got a rose. So, to fill all this extra space I gave myself, I'm just going to do a little spirally rose. Out and touch in, out and touch in, out and touch in, out and touch in. If one petal looks weird, just keep going until they look good. And a leaf. Jug, 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 jug. Jug, 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 jug. Lines. This is a doodle. That's all it needs to be. And up here, just kind of following along there, doing a little doodly thing. And putting some swirls in there. Definitely not my best work. You know what? It looks just fine. Okay. I don't know what else I want in these. What's in there? What's in there? Well, I know one thing I can do is I can just kind of do some little doodly things that kind of fill in the bottle a little bit. These are the rose petals in that bottle. Do those look like rose petals? No, but you know what? When you pile rose petals dried rose petals into a jar or bottle, you don't see the individual rose petal shapes. I know this for sure. I have jars of rose petals. That's kind of weird. Now, does that make sense that rose petals would go in there? I guess they're powdered rose petals. We'll just put powdered. I didn't think about that. Okay, now they can get out the top. Yeah, it would have made more sense to put them in a jar with a little whiter top, but you know, they're powdered. What do you use powdered rose petals for? I'm not sure. Just play with me here. It's art. Okay, I want to make that rose a little bigger. All right, now, what's going to go in here? Well, it's looking kind of kitchen-y, so I'm going to say this one is ginger syrup. G-I-N-G-E-R-S-Y-R-U, and the P is hidden. That's fine. So we've got ginger syrup, we've got rose petals. What else would I have that would go in a little corked bottle that wouldn't be a syrup? Da, 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 da. I'm going to have to pause the camera while I think about this because I'm making it too hard. Oh, I know. Vanilla. Let's see, so the V would be around the edge and you'd just be getting this part of it. I'll do this one in cursive. A, okay. Okay, that works. Let's see, ginger syrup. I think the ginger syrup, I do want it just to look handwritten on there, but maybe a little bolder. Okay, so there's that. All right, now we just need to tint it. Now you could use watercolors, you can use Copic markers, because watercolors are much more accessible, and this is a how to do this if you're a beginner kind of thing. We'll use those. You can use Copics, they do lovely things. That is how these were done. Watercolor has just a little bit chalkier look to it, also a softer look. But if you like that bolder look, you might want to invest in some Copic markers. I ended up with these by trading for them, so you can always put the word out that you're interested. You may run across somebody else in the art world that bought them and thought they would love them, and was like, I don't actually use these. I traded a few hours of crafting for somebody, making some party decorations, I think it was, in exchange for those. Don't remember exactly what I did for her, because she hires me to do lots of random little things. Okay, let's see. Ginger syrup. Ginger syrup tends to be golden. Part of this is a little off page, so off the screen. I can't get everything on screen, so just trust me, I am dipping in this kind of amber color here. And quite often I will just take it up onto here. I need to get enough. I've got to be careful. I have my water mug about 3 inches from, not even 3 inches, from my coffee mug. Set coffee mug behind me for a few minutes so I don't dip my paintbrush in there. Okay. It's going to get cold, but oh well. And then I am just going to wash this in. This is not fancy watercoloring. We're not securing our paper down, stretching it, or taping it down, or any of that. We are just tinting with watercolor. Let's see. On the top of this, which is not something I drew in and could have, but I can draw it in after the fact. My ginger syrup isn't going all the way up to the very top, so I'm going to go to there. And my vanilla. My vanilla is going to be a little deeper brown, and that's going to be in here. And you've already done most of your shading with your pen and ink, so you don't necessarily need to worry about, let's see, go up just a little bit because that's in the back. You don't necessarily need to worry about shading a lot with your watercolor. You can, but if you don't feel confident about it, just know you only have to go as far as feels good. You can stop at any point. Like so many things in life. Nobody says you gotta keep going just because you started. Stop at that point and go, okay, good enough. Happy enough with that. All right, the cork up here, those are just kind of a peachy reddish, so I'm sort of just mixing around a few colors. It's not going to look very much different than my vanilla at that rate. Let's get a little more pink in the peachiness. Is that cork colored? Yeah, not exactly, but that's okay. We're going to go with it. Looks fine. Okay, now here's the thing. What color are your bottles? I think my vanilla bottle is probably, I'm going to say that one's just about clear, although vanilla should be stored in a dark bottle, but maybe I didn't. So it's going to be, well, we'll make it a very light brown bottle and a slightly different brown. Top. So there, that way it stands up from the back. Now, if I was doing a completely different color, I would wash down over this. I'll show you that in a moment, but that'll work for that. My label, I'm going to imagine my label is white, so I'm just leaving that as is. You could paint your labels if you wanted. I'm going to go over to my ginger syrup bottle, and I'm going to make that a light green bottle, kind of a blue-green. I've got this kind of turquoisey thing going. And I want to add a lot of water. And again, typically I would take this up to this top part on my palette and use that, but or the top part on my paint tin has a palette. But I'm not going to worry. I'm going to start up here so I know what I'm doing. Okay, yeah, I'm happy enough with that. Come down here. And then yes, I'm coming right over the top of my nice golden ginger syrup, and I'm at least going to do down this side. I'm going to come lightly over the rest. So you still see the difference, and then I'm going to draw in. Once that dries, I'll put a few lines in to show where the top of that ginger syrup was. But there's definitely just bottle glass up here, and down here, your bottle with something in it. And then my rose petals. My rose petals themselves, these are old dried up pink rose petals. Tint that in. Do I want it more colorful? Maybe just a little bit. So we'll just go a little darker. And yeah, I'm just kind of picking up whatever colors here on my palette that's kind of in that rose color family. These are powdered, well, I suppose powdered is like pretty flat on top. And it doesn't look very powdery with those lines in there, but we're just going to pretend. Good enough. Now, on my label, I imagine that rose would show up a bit darker. Let's get a little more. That. Let's put some of that color up here too. That little shapy thing I did at the top. That little bar to this rose. I'm just going to kind of now I could have written those in a different color, but sometimes it works just fine to just give the idea of its colored lettering by just dabbing in some paint around it. You're being loose and easy here. Okay, now this jar. I think this jar is maybe tinted a light brighter green than that other one. There we go. And now coming down across what's in there, it is going to change the color. You don't have to do this if you hate the idea of it, because it is going to brown it up. And I think doing that is one of the things that makes the difference in whether it looks cute or just kind of pretty cute, because it's still pretty cute. But let's see, my ginger syrup label, I imagine that might be maybe just in general kind of a rusty color. I've got that a little darker than I want, so I'm going to rinse out my brush, and then I'm going to just kind of dry my brush. Did I just wipe that water on the front of my shirt? I did, after I wiped it off with my fingers, but that's because I'm wearing a pink shirt. There's my number one tip. Run around in clothes that look like this all the time. It's not fashionable, but man, you never worry about making messes. Let's see. And I was thinking that those labels were white, but now I kind of want to color in the labels. Do I? I do. What color would this one be? This one would be yellow. Let's go with some yellow. Let's add just a little orange in, so it's not quite, yeah, we want more traits of this yellow than that yellow, but we want it very light. So it's more like manila. And that is going to pick up just a little of the color because I'm doing this quick and dirty. It's going to pick up a little of the other color around. Again, I think that that looseness is what makes it more charming. Hey, yeah, I like that. And then the vanilla. I'm really tempted to go purple for some reason. Don't know why, because purple doesn't make any sense necessarily with vanilla. Maybe kind of a pinky purple. And very light. It's more just because I want some color in the middle of this. That's not bad. Maybe I want a little other color in there, so let's do just there. All right. What else do I think it needs? I think it needs, is it dry enough? Probably my wisest choice would be to hit it with the hair dryer. I'm not going to, but I am going to drop down to my 05 pen so that any bleed won't show. I'm going to put in this here, this little bit of top line. And I was cruel to this marker earlier, so I'm going to get it going again. Sometimes when you use your markers over the top of other art materials, they kind of clog up just a little bit. Don't give up on it. Scribble a bit and decide if it really is clogged before you just toss it. All right, there's that. Now, I could have left some white spots to show the reflection on the bottle, which I did on these, some lighter areas. I didn't get that fussy here. We can add a few after the fact. Originally, I had the top of that syrup a little lower, but it's up there now. Okay, there's that. Fun. You can add some highlights just with some white acrylic. I'm just going to squeeze some out onto this piece of cardstock. I don't want to get acrylic onto here because it dries and it's plasticky and it mucks with things. And I'll just use the same brush. I am going to thin it down a bit. I don't want to get a really bright white blob. So I'm going to do that. And if it's too much, you can just blot. You kind of go back and forth. It's not the ideal way to do this, putting in the highlights with acrylic paint, but it works. And the highlights are on the opposite side from your shadows. So your shadows are here, your highlights are on the other side. Again, ideally you would have left that and which for some reason I didn't think of it, but that's okay, because then that just shows another way to do it. So I'm highlighting where it is on the shoulder of the bottle. Now there would be a bit of a highlight coming down this way, but I think I'm going to leave that alone. I'll do the shoulder of this bottle. And that's going to be enough to give the indication of highlights without making it complicated. So there. What do you think? I'm betting that you can do this. You just cut out your shapes, draw around them, add some marker, add some details, tint them up. I hope you'll give it a try. It truly is easy, and there are so many things you can make this way. As I mentioned, teapots, teacups, hot air balloons, let's see, mason jars. What else might be your thing? Some seashells are symmetrical. I'm trying to think what else. Cookie jars, big apothecary jars, like the big candy jar kind of apothecary jars, things like that. Lots of things that are symmetrical can be drawn this way, and that'll give you a lot of things that you can put into your art journals, junk journals, put them on a card. If you like the look of stuff like this is big enough, you can put it in a small frame, and you've got art for your kitchen walls. So, I hope you'll give it a try. Go make some art, make some magic, make yourself happy. Shine. I'll catch up with you in another video soon. Have fun, loves.